And we're live on Twitch and YouTube. Hello, collective. Me and Marketing Ross here. Ultra Budget Brews did have some scheduling conflicts, so he was not going to make tonight's recording. But we are excited to talk to you today at the Budget Shop. We do have a special shout out, though, we want to get done here in the beginning. Marketing Ross, our very own, just had his second baby. Very excited. That's awesome. How does it feel to be dad dose?
Dados. Pretty good, yeah. It's awesome, man, and thank you. The second baby has been super chill, and more than I can ask for. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just biding my time until she decides to not be chill.
Oh, that's too funny. So here's the big question. Are you guys done at 2? Or is the door open for 3, 4, or 10? Are you guys trying to do a Jackson 5 thing?
We maybe won a basketball team, but no. But two is the finale.
2 is the finale?
Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
I was
man.
told in no uncertain terms from my wife that two is the last one.
Oh, that's too funny. So does that mean someone's getting the snip snips, mister?
That'd be me. Yep.
Oh, God. Don't worry. I'll buy you a year's worth of frozen peas for when that day comes.
Thank you. Am I owning them or borrowing them? Would you like them back?
Ooh, I would like them back. Just for future people that get the snip snip done.
Absolutely.
Well, Collective, we have a very exciting episode for you. So thank you so much for tuning in. We're about to go into the recording, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode of The Budget Shop. In three, two,
Hey guys, Marketing Ross here. You can always find me on Twitter at VisordRixVibes or in our Discord.
Hey, and this is Mr. Comma number 5 here, one of your mainstays over here. You can get at me at Mr. Comma number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. You can get our main channel at CMD Tower, where we will have everything posted. And yes, Elon Musk will not scare us away. And yes, we will not be paying for blue check marks, even though we don't have them anyways. And welcome to a new episode of The Budget Shop, where floor to ceiling has no meaning here, and the foiling is always taco shaped. And today we're going to be focused around a different color set while on a budget. And today we are going to be mainly focusing on black insert color treasure themed. Really, with the surgence of treasures up, down, left, right, we figured, hey, let's figure out if there's a budget way to build black treasures and figure out what that splash color is going to be. Now, before we get into the meat of this episode, we would love for you to check out abyssproxyshop.com using code CMD Tower. That's actually a proxy playtest card creator that we have partnered with. When you use our code, it gets you 10% off. Plus, the channel does get a little bit of a kickback to kind of help keep the lights on. And hey, let's be honest, Wizards has just put all proxies are legal apparently to be able to sell for thousands of dollars. So with our prices at $3 to $5, how could you pass up the value? So if you could, abyssproxyshop.com using code CMD Tower. Now, Marketing Ross, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what you feel like Black X Treasures looks like holistically to you when someone's trying to build a deck, but really scraping those pennies off the underside of a park bench?
Yeah. So when you think about treasures in a normal deck, I mean, there's the standard of using them to get ahead in value and sometimes severely outpace your opponent in just pure value.
Sure.
Doing the thing that's typically seen in green, where you just have mana resources out the wazoo. And then when you're not constrained to a budget, you think about things like Revel in Riches, which is a
Mhm.
way that you can win using treasures. Um, Now, when you're in budget with treasures, I would say you're much more in that first camp that I talked about, and you're just purely looking for that additional value. Um, that I know of, there's not anything that's quite as equivalent as Revel in Riches. There's not too many I win cards
Yeah.
in a budget category, but yeah, I mean, just incremental value over time with treasures. I think we can find some fun stuff to do.
Yeah. When I really think about black treasures, I try to think of ways to do big black mana things, BBMs. And black does this very well. A lot of times it's like pay life or hey, black market, your pre-combat main phase, you're gonna get X black mana floating based on all the creatures that have died up until that point. And treasures is just really another way that black can kind of abuse. And I think other than maybe red, black is probably up there tied for two with the number of X spells out there. There's a lot of X spells. Obviously not in the budget category, but like your um, Tormenta, Hailfires, and such. But that's kind of where I think treasures and budget, and honestly, with the way that Wizards keeps printing treasures nonstop, it's opening up a lot of budget avenues because there's just this influx of, let's be honest, kind of bad treasure cards, but they just keep printing them. And any type of bad Magic card is gold to a budget player, because of the fact that, hey, it was draft chaff. Probably they just needed to fill an uncommon or common slot. Probably not going to get played in competitive areas, so the price is going to stay pretty low. Um, so that's really the way I kind of look at Black Treasures. The only other thing that you could do in that Warhammer 40K precon kind of opens the door is Black artifacts are
Mm.
kind of becoming a thing now. So I almost wonder if there's a different take instead of doing big black mana stuff. Maybe it's Black artifact synergy. Like, what do you kind of think about that? Do you think there's enough support coming to really kind of help Black artifacts?
Yeah. So I would have to take another look at it, but I think the precon for black is primarily in non-token artifacts, but it still has a lot of synergy with just artifacts in general. But while I'm thinking about the 40k ones, and that's a good point, precons are an excellent starting place for new Magic players. But there was the Esper one, Marnius Calgar, who creates tokens, and whenever one or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So if
Mm,
you can just figure out a way to make treasures, like you said, you could use some of those quote unquote bad treasure cards
hmm.
to generate tokens, and then get even more value off of it by drawing cards.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I actually just did a search. There's 50 plus cards in just mono black and colorless that have artifacts in its rules text. So, you could kind of go through and do, on Scryfall, all the different combinations to see, as you add that second color in there. But just
Mhm.
50 alone in mono black and colorless alone that you could kind of run within that deck tells me that you probably do have some legs where maybe you can use these treasures to tap for just incremental value. Maybe you're sacking them to draw cards, or even using them for sacrifice effects to then, shoot down your opponents.
Right. Yeah, and you mentioned X spells earlier, and a lot of those like Big Daddy X spells, the Exsanguinate and Tormenta Hailfire and things
Hmm.
like that, the things that are going to end the game, those aren't in budget, but you can Fireball all day. That's certainly a red X spell that you could use your treasures on.
Oh, that is so true. And what we'll actually do here, just real quick, let's see. So right now in just black, there are 10 cards with just a single X and its mana cost. But if we end up saying, let's go ahead and add another X in there. And then there's five with double X. But I see Scryfall can't really give us everything in the mana cost. I think I'd have to add then a black. Yeah. So Scryfall doesn't necessarily have the best search engine to kind of figure out all the X spells, but I think to that point, there's probably at least 15 to 20 that you'd be able to run. And I'm looking at one right now, Dark Salvation, XX Black Sorcery. Target player creates X 2/2 Black Zombie creature tokens. Then up to one target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each zombie that player controls. The card's 25 cents. So
Yeah.
I think to that point, there probably is, depending on which direction you wanted to go, a lot of very affordable cards to kind of help get that deck rolling.
Right. Yeah, and I actually kind of like that one because in a budget treasure build, one avenue that you might be able to go down is tokens coming in and tokens going out.
Oh,
And
good point.
so whether they're treasures or those zombies, I think that would be a good way to utilize those resources.
Great points. Well, let's move to our next section, but we would love for you guys to check out our amazing Patreon community, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have four different tiers on there. Bare minimum, $3 a month. It gets you full unadulterated access into our Discord. There is no fuzzy screens like you guys remember on Channel 99 back when we were kids. Kids, don't look that up. Do not Google that for the love of everything. But a lot of different things on there, plus opportunities to be on the channel. Like I know Brews and Builds next week we'll actually have Patreon Nathan, Sir Nathan, actually coming on and talking about one of his decks that have just plagued me and Marketing Ross for many years. But also being able to get swag like our playmats, our sleeves, our tokens, things like that. Plus, between now and Thanksgiving, when you sign up, you do get a 20% coupon to our store. So just remember, if you're looking to support us, patreon.com/CMD Tower. Now, since we're focused on the archetype, we need a legend to helm said deck. I'm going to talk about which legendary really spoke to me. Um, and so, whenever I do these budget builds, because anyone who listens to Brews and Builds knows that I am not really a budget player at all, um, I usually try to go for these weird ones. I try to go for something a little unique. That way, it at least entertains that competitive mind of mine. Because other than just plain bad, like, don't give me a legendary with no rules text because I'm just going to tell you to like f off. But with something that's a little odd, I feel like even though it might be really sweaty, it might be very difficult to do, I could do something really cool with this. And I felt Mahadi Imperium Master was really cool. This is a colorless Rakdos, so you're black and you're red. It's a legendary creature, Cat Devil, and you can pick this commander up for 10 cents. At the beginning of your instep, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn, and it's a 3/3. So, what does, you know, really kind of what we think about here? It's an instep trigger. I really like that. It doesn't even appear that Mahadi would have to see any of those creatures die. You could board wipe, then bring Mahadi in because it just cares about what died this turn.
Mm.
So that kind of gives you some shenanigans. So that kind of goes into board white tribal, using the treasures to accelerate your recovery. Um, Board wipes are plentiful budget wise. Your highly expensive ones, your damnations, your toxic delusions won't be available, but there's plenty of like 5, 6, 7, 8 CMC board wipes out there. I mean, heck, make sure I don't speak at a turn, but in Garuk's Wake, I'm pretty sure would be
Oh
budget.
yeah, it's budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably like what, like a nickel to 10 cents? My internet would, or Scryfall would load.
Let's see. It just got reprinted in Baldur's Gate too, so it's 53 cents.
53 cents. There you go.
That's
So, and I
pretty
mean,
good.
that's a 9 mana that only board wipes your opponents. So I really like that. Rakdos, those colors do a lot of group sacrificing. Obviously not budget, but like your Mogus type of effects. Hey, at the beginning of upkeep, everyone's going to sacrifice a creature. Well, that gives you literally 4 treasures right there if you're in a 4 pod. And like I pointed out, it doesn't care about whose creature died, and I think that's the key. It doesn't say creatures you control, banger, and it doesn't say create a treasure token if a creature died this turn. It's for each creature that died this turn. I mean, this just has a lot of legs, in my opinion. Marketing Ross, when you look at Mahadi Emporium Master, like what comes to mind for you?
Yeah. First of all, his thumbs freak me out. That's the first thought I have. Um,
Were
if
they
you
weird?
remember, yeah, from Dungeons and Dragons, the those cat people,
Yeah.
Rakasha or whatever it's called. Somebody will correct me.
Are
Their
those
thumbs
thumbs
are on
on
the
the
left side.
underside?
Yeah, it's on
Ugh.
the yeah. So
Ah,
take a
don't
look at
like
that.
that.
Um, but no, it's really cool. So when I first started looking at Mahadi, my mind went aristocrat first.
Hmm.
But when you started talking about like wiping the table and then collecting the treasures afterwards, I really like that approach. And there are some really cool board wipes in a budget. So I'm interested to see what you pull up there.
Yeah, well, I'll be interested as well. Unfortunately, one of the key pieces to this deck is not a budget card, Darksteel Plate. Those are like $6. But I think that's the only thing that the budget player would have to figure out. Like, how do I either blink Mahadi for and then do my board wipe, like maintaining priority? How do I give it indestructible? How do I
Mm.
just bounce it to hand and then recast it with some mana left over? I think that's going to be really the key with this particular style deck.
Yeah, there's plenty of options that are one shot. So you have like Kaya's ghost form and things like
Yep.
that. That might be a cool way to do it too. Is
Oh yeah.
wipe the board and then say, but Mahadi's coming back.
That's that's a really good card. I'm actually looking at mine like, wait, did I say that one? Okay, no, I didn't.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I
Um,
shouldn't spoil cards.
well, Marketing Ross, when you were thinking of black and another color around treasures and trying to really make that a theme, what legendary really spoke out to you?
Yeah. So, in the same vein as like where you try to find something interesting to, scratch that competitive itch. Um, Even though I'm already restricting myself in a budget, I tend to like to, I wouldn't even call it hipster picks, but I like to choose something that's not, there's not a ton of builds around them. And
Sure.
so this one, after I say it, is probably going to make sense, but there are a surprisingly few number of this build on EDH Rec.
Okay.
So I went with partner commanders. I went with Eek Tikik, the Salvage Splicer,
Yep.
and Armix Filigree Thrasher.
Okay.
And so my thought is, there is plenty of options to create treasures within Golgari. As you
Hmm.
said, they just keep throwing treasure cards at us. And Eek to Keek cares about when artifacts go to the graveyard. So
Yep.
as I use those treasures, I'm going to generate value, putting +1 counters on him and +1 counters on my partner, who is a golem. Um, so the treasures will actually serve a twofold purpose here. First is in the attack phase. If I have a bunch of treasures, hypothetically, it will amplify Armix's attack trigger, which will hopefully act as removal.
Hmm.
And then in my second main phase, I can use those treasures to cast something new, and then grow Armix for the next attack.
I really like that. That's super cool. So just curious, is there enough golem support in Golgari budget, or is that just like I'm really just using an itch to kick to do the for the second effect? I don't really care. Sorry, second effect, first sentence of that effect. Like, really, the golem part is that just kind of like a meant don't really care.
Yeah, so there are a handful of golems within a budget that are actually pretty useful.
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up one of them when we go through this, but yeah, for the most part, it's that it's it's almost like a two shot Voltron approach where I'm
Hmm.
using those treasures to grow both commanders at the same time.
That's really cool. I'll be interested to hear in your penny, nickel, dime, quarter, like what cards are going to generate your treasure since these guys don't do it on their own. Obviously, you'll need a lot of that support in the 99 or 98.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, no, I think this is really cool. Like, are you going to have any type of, are you going to have any type of like just generic artifact stack? And it's like, hey, maybe this itch to kick, I'm able to blink it or put it in the graveyard, bring it back, but constantly use that 3/3 golem other than just like a chump blocker?
Yeah, I think there are a few outlets that are that you can sack artifacts within a budget. They're nowhere near as good as like a Arcbound Ravager or a KCI or anything like
Sure.
that. But I'm trying to think of one that has been reprinted a few times, and it's you sack an artifact and then you proliferate.
Okay.
Um, let's see, Throne of Geth. Let's see what that costs if it would fit in our budget. 26 cents.
Oh,
I
there
think
you go.
we could find a slot for that. But yeah,
Yeah.
so Throne of Geth is a 2 drop artifact, and you tap it to sack an artifact, and then you proliferate. So
Okay.
hypothetically, I could do 2 things at once there.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool. Well, cool. Well, let's move over to our final area where we'll kind of talk about cards at certain budget levels that you guys would be able to include in our decks. Before we do, we mentioned it earlier. We'd love for you to check out our CMD Tower store, cmdtower.com/nothing. I always forget that Etsy does a stupid thing. So it's etsy.com. Just type in CMD Tower in the search bar. You'll find our store on there. We do have our sweaters. We do have everything you kind of need. Everything you guys do on there really does help to go to the channel. Like we just got back from Magic 30, so some of that helped cover our Verbo costs, helped cover some of the tickets, some of the plane fares, things like that. And we love coming to conventions and being able to meet people in the collective or even preach the good word. So if you guys are looking for playmat sleeves or anything to kind of help your Magic experience or just want to support us, just remember Etsy.com, CMD Tower in the search bar. Now we're going to head over to the penny, nickel, diamond, quarter, and Marketing Ross. We would love to hear what's your penny, nickel, diamond, quarter for Itch to Kick and Amaryk's Filigree Thrasher. I really think you just picked Itch to Kick because you just like saying Itch to Kick.
I have an itch to kick. I honestly I don't know how to say his name. I thought it was like Iktikik, like weird golem noises,
Yeah.
but I honestly don't know. So we're just gonna call him the green one.
All
Um,
right, the green one.
so in the penny, I grabbed a card from the new Capenna set, and it is Capenna Express. So it's three colorless and a green, and it's a vehicle. It's a 6/6, and I can sacrifice a treasure to crew it, essentially.
Okay.
So it also has crew 3, which my Armix commander could crew it, but I want to attack with him, so that's not a great use of him. But I thought it was kind of cool that it is a vehicle that will get around board wipes and things like that, and I can crew it just by simply sacrificing one of those treasures I have laying around anyway.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, also you could use that 3/3 golem that Ishtakik makes.
That's true.
So yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. So do you feel like this is just mainly here because, like, once again in budget, it's very live in the red zone battle cruiser. So do you really feel like that's the value that this card's bringing? It's like, hey, that's a 6/6 that's going to be able to like really mess people up.
Hmm. Yeah. So for the most part, in budget, besides red, creature removal is probably the easiest thing to do. Red gets those artifacts, and I guess green dips in there too. But my hope is by it being a vehicle, most of the time it can survive a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, when I need to get into the red zone, it is a 6/6 coming at somebody like a freight train.
Okay. Well, what's your nickel?
So for my nickel, I have two for you. I have a bonus card here. So my first one is a way to kind of get around the what would be the downside of Armix's ability.
Okay.
So to use his ability, I also have to discard a card. And so what I went with was for 3 cents, Bag of Holding.
Oh
And
yeah.
so it's a one drop artifact, and it says whenever you discard a card, exile that card from your graveyard. And then I can pay 2 and tap it to draw a card and discard a card, or pay 4 and tap it to sacrifice it and return all the cards exiled with it to my hand. So hopefully, I can hang on to those cards that I would otherwise bin, and I can get them
Hmm.
back. But then also, at the end of the day, when I sack this thing to bring them back to my hand, I can also grow Armix and the green one.
Yeah, no. So this is funny. I think this is a card that I remember seeing it, and people got all excited about it, and I was like, "This card's trash. Like, I would not play this in any of my decks." But I think that's just the difference between when you're trying to play on a budget and when you're just trying to build an optimum deck. Like, this isn't an optimum card. Maybe for like an Anji deck, I could
Mm,
see like everything that you're madnessing out. It's like I can get it and do it again. But outside of that one commander, I don't know what commander in a normal game would run Bag of Holding, but hey, 1 mana, 3 cents, and this literally because I also feel that in budget, your resources are so important because
mm,
it's like there's not a ton of ramp, there's not a ton of card draw unless it's all really expensive. And it feels bad if you spent 6 mana to draw 2 cards or 3 cards, and then you just have to discard 33% of that just to do the effect. So the fact
right.
that you're able to get those back later is massive in a budget deck. Plus, I don't think anyone's using artifact removal on Bag of Holding. They're going to be way more worried about like the one person that might have Swiftfoot boots because like that immediately could make them unstoppable.
Right. Yeah. And if somebody blows up Bag of Holding, I'm like, well, whatever.
Well, what was your bonus card?
So my bonus card is also from Street of New Capenna, and it is Glittermonger, and it's three colorless and a green for 4 cents. It is a one
Okay.
four elf rogue, and you can tap him to create a treasure token.
Okay.
So this was a way that I found. Like you said, the commanders don't generate treasures on their own.
Yeah.
So I got to find a few ways to pump them out.
That's really cool. Oh my gosh. That in a Simic deck. And yes, I'm going there. Intruder alarm. Infinite treasures. Find a way to make your artifacts always a creature, and boom, you're just going hamskied. Oh, that'd be sweet.
I thought you were going to say freed from the real, and then you crack the treasure to pay the blue to untap him, and then make another treasure, and just
Oh
keep
my
doing it
god.
over and over.
You know what? I remember at one point early in my Magic career, I was like, there has to be some benefit to just untapping and tapping creatures. Like, if I could just go infinite, and even if I don't do anything, another card has to care. I couldn't find anything.
Wave Crasher is a merfolk, and it gets +1/+1 for each thing that's been untapped. I think is that its name?
No, when
Wave
it
Crasher, maybe.
wait, is it
Uh,
2 words, Wave Crasher? No, the only thing I find that has Wave Crasher is Yarok's Wave Crasher, which is I don't think what you meant.
It's Wake Thrasher, 2 words.
Wake Thrasher.
Yeah. So whenever a permanent you control becomes untapped, it gets 1/1
Hmm.
until end of turn.
Oh, there you go. Just make an
But
infinitely big, swole merfolk soldier, which honestly, that art does not look like a merfolk to me. That looks like a scary, scary sea monster.
they're borderline the same.
Well, what do we have for a dime?
Okay, so I'm pushing the limits here, and I got a bonus card for you here too.
All right.
But so my first one for 7 cents is from Modern Horizons 2,
Yes.
and it is Fey Offering. So
Okay.
it's an enchantment for 2 colorless and a green, and it says at the beginning of each end step, if you've cast both a creature spell and a non-creature spell this turn, create a clue, food, and treasure token.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so mostly I want those treasure tokens, but also if I crack the food or clue tokens, that's doing the same thing that Eek Teek Eek wants to happen anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And it still feeds into Amorex because it doesn't specifically say that it needs to be a treasure. It just says artifacts you control. So
Yep,
it's like, hey, I'll take the clues and the foods, even if I don't actually need them for the quote unquote value.
right.
Oh, I like that.
Cool. So my bonus one here, I you can tell that Streets of New Capenna is somewhat new because I got another one from there, and this is 10 cents on the nose, and it is Prize Fight. So it's 1 colorless and a green for an instant, and it has amazing artwork, by the way. Um, it has Rocket Raccoon punching Rocksteady in the face.
Yes. Oh my
And
god,
so
it totally does.
what it does is it says target creature you control fights target creature you don't control. So it's a fight card. But it also generates a treasure token.
Oh,
So
nice.
it acts as quasi removal for me, depending on
Mhm.
how big I've grown my commanders. But then it also just continues to ramp me.
Yeah, I like that. Plus, I mean, the way I always look at these cards is that if you get any type of mana in return once the spell is resolved, I immediately take that mana and I discount the card because that's not really like what I paid for the card isn't its true cost because of what I end up getting in return. So I
Mhm.
really look at this as like, okay, are you guys is the community comfortable paying a colorless because the treasure could be any color, so that could take care of the green, a colorless to fight a creature. That would be played all the live long day.
Right.
So, yeah, I really, really like that's a sexy card.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's round it out with your quota.
All right, moving into the quarter, we're gonna finally talk about a golem. So it's under a quarter because it was recently reprinted. It's 17 cents and it is Geode Golem.
Oh, okay.
So 5 colorless for a artifact creature golem. It's a 5/3 with trample. And it says whenever Geode Golem deals combat damage to a player, you may cast your commander from the command zone without paying its mana cost. So 2 things I like about this. It's 5 mana. So that's the same as my green commander. So if he gets removed a couple times, this
Hmm.
just gets him for free. Um, and with the way that Armix works, where I have to attack for that trigger to go off, he's
Hmm.
probably going to die a few times.
Yeah.
So I just like that there's probably especially in a budget table, there's somebody that I could at least trample over for 1 to cast my commander for free.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I really like that. I'm over here looking at the rules text. Obviously, it's probably pretty blatant that you wouldn't be able to, but I'm kind of curious with partners how that works.
Oh yeah, I'm
Um,
pretty sure it would just be one of them.
just one of them, and then I'm also kind of curious because I think it's considered your commander backgrounds. I wonder if
Yes, you could choose to cast your background for free.
so. Yeah, I like that. No, that's good. I think the only thing I don't like about this card is you still have to pay command tax.
Mm,
So it's, really I'm just going back in my browser. So itch to kick, that would save you a ton because that's 5 mana to get out. Amerix is 3, so I guess that's still a okay amount. So that would be one that I think you would be able to see its value over a few games and try to figure out like, are you actually helping me? Because like if itch to kick, like if one of your things is like, hey, I'm trying to sacrifice this thing and then bring it back and do more treasures, then hey, saving 5 mana every time you cast them is massive. The
right.
Armorix, I don't know if I would agree on that because I just know how important slots are in budget. Like if you have a card in your budget deck, it's weird. Budget building is almost like CEDH or competitive, to where every slot is so important because in a budget world, you just don't have infinite dollars to go spend. You have that restriction. In the competitive world, it's like I'm trying to win as like as soon as turn one, and I got to deal with everyone else being an asshole and trying to do the same thing. So I don't know. What do you kind of feel about that? Do you think I'm maybe overstating? Like, hey, saving that 3 mana is massive in budget, or would this potentially be a card you have to kind of toy around with and see if it still has a slot in the 98?
Yeah, so I think I would definitely use it more for Eek to Kick than Armix.
Hmm.
Like you said, he's 3, so I could probably cast him more times, and
Yeah.
I am in green, so outside of treasures, I should be ramping as well, probably.
Okay.
Um, but the reason that I think he earned a slot is because he himself is a golem with
Oh,
trample.
okay.
So as I sack those treasures and as I sack things, Eek to Keek is going to make him grow and grow. So he's going to become a threat on his own.
Okay. I like it. I like it.
Cool.
All right. Well, we're gonna move over to my penny nickel dime quarter. And for Mahadi, just a reminder, in step, create a treasure token for each creature that died this turn. So that's kind of what we're going. So you can get this card for a penny out of Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Two colorless black sorcery, no way out. Target opponent discards two cards. You create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. So here's what I like about this. Um, in the limited budget experience I have, um, your resources are so important. I've kind of talked about that throughout this episode. So having an opponent discard two cards, that I think that's kind of backbreaking a little bit in budget because even if they're just discarding basic lands, what's the likelihood that they actually have true Kadama's reach and stuff? Probably not. So that's really going to set them back. And the 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed, it's sneaky good because it can't block. So I'm just going to swing. Even if someone's like, you know what, I don't want it to die because I don't want you to have a treasure token. Well, when it attacks, I have to sacrifice it at the end of combat anyways. So it's like take your damage, but no matter what, I'm getting a treasure at the end of my turn.
Yeah, absolutely. As soon as I saw Decayed, I figured that's where you were going with this, and I
Yep.
like it a lot. Um, li- like you said, the resources in hand or on the field in a budget build are super important, and especially if you think about if somebody else at the budget table has built a deck that does not draw cards well,
Hmm.
and you make them discard two of them, that is going to be really rough.
Awesome. Well, I similar to you, especially with our co-host or tri-host out tonight. I do have some bonus cards for my nickel diamond quarter. So the first one for 5 cents on the nose, Braid's Frightful Return. Two colorless black from Dominaria United. It's an enchantment saga. Um, choose a chapter and start with that many lore counters. Add one after your draw step. Skip chapters, don't trigger. Sacrifice after three. First chapter. You may sacrifice a creature. If you do, each opponent discards a card. Same thing. I'm getting a treasure, and I'm now going 3 card resources down on my opponent's side. Chapter 2. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Recursion is going to be big in this because if I am sacrificing my own stuff to get you guys to do the other effects, it'd be great for me to get it back to hand. But then target opponent may sacrifice a non-land, non-token permanent, and if they don't, they lose 2 life, and I draw a card. So for me, this is providing incremental value for what my deck wants to accomplish for 3 whole rotations at 5 cents and 3 mana.
Yeah, I think this is awesome. It does everything you want it to do. It forces people to lose their resources when you're doing what you
Hmm.
are already doing. It gives you that creature back that you were going to sack. And what was the last thing? If they didn't, oh yeah, you
Well,
give them a bit of a Sophie's choice there at the end. But
and
uh,
the interesting thing, Marketing Ross, is a lot of people forget that, and I read it, the read ahead, you can start on chapter 2 if you want. You can start on any of the chapters you want. It's just you lose out on the previous ones. So maybe this is super late game and my commanders kept getting blown up and I've been holding it. It's like, you know what? Mudhati, you're going to the graveyard. Great Frightful Return, boom, back to hand. It's only 3 mana. And then, maybe some board wipe had happened, and now I'm getting all these treasures to rebuild.
yeah, no, I like that. Three's a pretty decent cost for a recursion spell to hand too. So
Yeah.
the only other thing I'll say about it is this artwork is wild. It looks
Yeah.
like Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends or something.
My goodness, I need to get one of those behind me. That's the next banner I need. Or hey, you know what? Maybe we'll get it for your new daughter. Put it in her room, and
Hang
that'll
it in the
just give
nursery.
the best dreams. I'm sure.
Right. Frightful.
Well, my next one is Blood Soaked Altar. So So you can get this again right at a nickel, core set 2020, 4 colorless black, so it's a bit expensive. But our treasures are going to really help pay for it. Tap, pay 2 life, discard a card, sacrifice a creature, make a 5/5 token with flying, a demon creature token, activate only as a sorcery. So the reason I really like this is we're forcing the treasure aspect, but then we're getting a creature out of it. And so it becomes this thing in Rakdos where if every turn I smack you for 5, and then I sack that demon, get another demon, I netted a treasure, but I only lost a card and 2 life, because that's really all it is. Lose 2 life and lose a card because you're still going to have that 5/5. That's a payoff I'm probably willing to do over and over and over again. And then just make sure that I'm doing things that have like unearth or other, graveyard to the battlefield type effects. Hey, when a creature died, you may return that to the battlefield tapped. Maybe it's a crappy 2/1 that can't block, but who cares? Like, that's other things that I can then sacrifice to future effects. How do you feel about Bloodsoaked Altar? Is the 6 mana a little too greedy?
It's it's a little steep, but we're in a budget, so
Yeah.
and it is repeatable. I do like that. And I also like the idea if you're going to do this turn over turn. So you do this, you do your rigmarole on one turn, and then the next turn you swing with that 5/5 demon, which is a big threat.
Yep.
And then second main, if you don't have any other creatures to use, you could sack that demon and make a new one.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. The dimes. We're getting a little spicier now. This guy coming in at 6 cents. Adventures in the Forgotten Realms. Hoarding Ogre. 3 colorless red. Creature ogre. Whenever it attacks, roll a d20, and it's a 3/3. If you get a 1 through 9, just make a treasure token. 10 through 19, make 2 treasure tokens. 20, make 3 treasure tokens. I really look at this card almost as like a backup commander a little bit for me. If for some reason Mahadi, people get rid of death triggers, and I'm not going to get that. Or maybe they Dryad Arbor it, and it can't go anywhere. Well, Hoarding Ogre is at least still going to net me 1 treasure minimum. I would say the more likelihood, I'm probably going to get 1.5 treasures every rotation. Sometimes I'll probably get 2, sometimes I'll get 1. I'll occasionally get a 3. But I just feel like this is a real good value. And it is just a 3/3, so if it needs to, die, it can die, and I'm still getting a treasure if Mahadi's out. So it's kind of those like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. So the only thing that I probably would say I dislike about this card, and again, we're in a budget, so I'm going to be asking for too much here, is that it is a 3/3. I
Yeah,
wish it was just a little fluffier for something that you want to
sure.
attack with every turn, even if it was a 4/4. Um, but that's a really good point. Is you don't care if it gets blocked and killed. You already made your treasures, and
Yep.
you'll make another one for it dying. So I
Yep.
like this a lot.
All right. Next one on the agenda is Zombie Infestation. And so this card is clocking in. Of course, when I did my notes, there was a 10-cent one. It's now 11 cents, but that's okay. But this
Inflation.
is yeah, inflation. Colorless black. You could get one as old as Odyssey. The cheapest copy you can get is from Magic 2012, and it's an enchantment. Discard 2 cards, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. There will be a point in the game where I just need bodies, and or maybe the things in my hand I don't really care about at the time. But the one thing we know for sure is I need things to die so I can continue to get my treasures. So this is a little bit like that card that gets played in landfall decks. I think it's like you discard lands, you start bolting stuff.
Mm.
I think it might be discard 2 lands. You get to do 3 damage to any target. But there's
Yeah.
a lot of effects like that, or the cycling one where hey, you could pitch lands to get a red, cycle them out. So there's a lot of that stuff where you hit a point in the game and you just the cards in hand aren't really going to help you, especially in a budget build, because you are going to lean more to the bruise and builds methodology of grains and hops. At a point in the game, you just need to win. And having more artifact ramp or having more board wipes might not be anything. So I feel like Zombie Infestation, especially for just 11 cents, will really help your game in the late game.
Hmm. Seismic Assault is the
Ah,
discard a
there
land
we
to deal
go.
damage. Um, I like the idea of this card. The only thing I'm concerned about is if you'll have enough cards in hand frequently to
Mm,
get a good
yeah.
good use out of it, right?
Hmm.
So I know you have like the Braids Frightful return, so you'll be able to return a few things. And while we're on that on that theme, maybe it's like reanimating skeletons and those types of
Hmm.
creatures that you're pitching because you're going to get them back anyway.
Yep.
So if that's the case and you have the deck full of those things that can get back on their own, I like that. The only thing I'm concerned about in budget is there's not a ton of good card draw, and so
Sure.
like you said, when you're building in those slots, you want to have some card draw, but
Sure.
maybe not enough to have like a Blue Sun Zenith or something where you have a full grip.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Well, don't worry. We're going to keep on this not having a hand bit when we go to the quarters section. So for my quarter, the first one I'm starting off with, you can get for 17 cents from Modern Horizons 2,
Hmm.
Chainer Nightmare Adept. So we talked about all the things I'm going to be discarding. Well, for two colorless Rakdos, black and red, legendary creature, human minion, 3/2, discard a card. You may cast a creature spell from your graveyard this turn, activate only once each turn. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if you didn't cast it from your hand, it gains haste until your next turn. So yeah, I'm going to be discarding cards, but hey, all of those creatures that I've been discarding, we're just going to reanimate you later on in the game. Or hey, I've been board wiping left and right. Now Chainer's going to come in and go ahead and bring that board back to 0. So I feel like at 17 cents, this is kind of a slam dunk for this deck or any type of deck where you might be doing board wipe dot deck.
Hmm. I like this pick a lot, actually. Outside of the use case that you just mentioned, another thing that this is really cute to get around is discarding the card that you wanted to cast anyway,
Hmm.
and then casting that creature to give it haste. So even
Yep.
if you don't have a target in your graveyard, you get to do cute things with Chainer. I think this is great.
Awesome. Yeah, we did it. All right, last one. 23 cents, 3 mana, black, black. Let's see. Cheapest copies, Forgotten Realms Commander, just recently printed. Ogre, Slumlord. 3 colorless, black, black. Whenever a non token creature dies another, you may create a 1/1 black rat token, and rats you control have death touch, and this is a 3/3. So we talked about the board wipes, and yes, Ogre Slumlord would be one of the ones that dies, but it's kind of like the Marin effect. And it doesn't care if I controlled the non-token creature either. So we do that board wipe. Let's just say 7 or 8 creatures die. I'm getting 7 or 8 treasures. I'm getting 7 to 8 black rat creature tokens, and I'm literally off to the races. Maybe I use Chainer later to bring Ogre Slumlord back, but I almost kind of feel like this is somewhat of a replacement effect for, hey, everything that I'm going to lose when I do this board wipe because I want to get 8 treasures or 9 treasures, this will help build up my board state just as much. Almost kind of similar to like how Black Market can kind of do that. You board wipe, and it's like, well, I'm not getting creatures to replace it, but man, I got 15 mana that I'm going to get next turn because of that one board wipe.
Yeah. No, I think this is sweet. And outside of the board wipe use, if you can just use either targeted removal or just regular combat to have creatures die, so you get these rats. The next turn, when you're swinging with 1/1s with death touch, you're like, I'll ping you, or
Yeah.
you can block them. Either way, I'm getting a good deal out of this.
Yeah, well, and to even add to that, I mentioned at the very top of the show when I picked Mahadi, Rakdos does a lot of group sacrifice. So who's to say I'm not going to sacrifice my reoccurring skeleton over and over and over, and just keep getting 1/1 rats over and over and over. I will say I run Ogre Slumlord in my Shirai deck, and if you can consistently sacrifice a non-token and be able to bring it back to do it again, it's very, very hard to get because it becomes like, well, do I get rid of Ogre Slumlord? Or do I get rid of the thing reanimating it every time? Like, I don't really know what to do. Do I exile their graveyard first? It really gives them a modal decision that I don't have to make. You just have to figure it out.
Also, are you accidentally building ogre sub tribal?
Maybe. Who knows? I feel like ogres could be a budget class, right?
Probably. There's some really weird commander from I think Betrayers of Kamigawa, and it's a
Hmm.
demon, and it says like if you don't control any ogres, you have to sacrifice it. So it's very strange. But one card while you were talking about board wipes and in budget and in Rakdos that I was surprised that you didn't talk about is Deathbringer Regent. And so that let me just pull it up is a dragon.
Yeah.
It's a 5/6 for
Yep.
5 colorless and black black. It has flying, and if when it ETBs, if you cast it, and there are 5 other creatures on the battlefield, destroy all other creatures. So it's like a blasphemous act, but you get to
Yeah.
keep the dragon.
I like that. I mean, it would definitely go in the 99 for sure. I mean, I don't see why you wouldn't. Plus, it is just like a big beater. And I feel like with the deck that I'm trying to build with Mahadi, I don't feel like I'm ever gonna have mana issues. Like,
Mhm.
I know that sounds a little arrogant because I haven't even like put the rest of the deck together. But like as we talk more and more about it, really, I feel like the main thing I got to figure out, or you do, is how do we keep Mahadi on the battlefield or away from the destruction and board wipes and sacrifice? Like, how do we just make sure that that's protected? And let's be honest, we all think about that when we build our commander decks. How do I protect my, especially if you build top down like I do? How do I protect my commander? Because I can't keep paying the command tax, exponentially. Like that's just not realistic. This isn't a Prosh deck with food chain. We don't
Right.
have any rigmaroles like that.
No,
All right.
that's a solid point, and I think, especially in budget, a lot of those are probably built top down because you find a commander that is within the budget you wanna build in,
Mhm.
and then you use whatever the theme of that commander is. There's not a ton of, like, good stuff things happening, on a budget.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Well, everyone, thanks for visiting our humble budget shop. This is Mr. Comment number 5 saying thanks for stopping by.
This is Marketing Ross saying, "Run Rogue's Passage."
All right, Twitch and YouTube, we have stopped recording. Thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out with us. We all hope you had a great night. I will be back on tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time to do a great episode of Where in the Multiverses with Fibblethip with the Librarians. And we are focusing on Eldraine. So we hope to see you there.